Tyrese just had one of the realest interviews I've ever seen on The Breakfast Club, and he hit a lot of major points when it comes to men's mental health. Now, what exactly did he say? I want to break this down from a licensed therapist perspective, so you guys sit back and we're going to talk about it right now. What's good, y'all? My name is Terrence Stewart, and I'm your men's mental health expert. Now, Tyrese recently went on The Breakfast Club, and he laid it all flat out. He's been dealing with a lot of grief, a lot of loss, a lot of transition in his life, and I really like the way he articulated how he's feeling and what he's going through. Now, we're going to check this video out, and I want to hear from you guys. If you guys watched the video already, what did you guys think of his delivery and his vulnerability when he was talking about his grief and the things that he's going through? So let's go ahead and check out the video.
Reese, you deal with a lot of grief. Like I think about, Brother Paul Walker, and I think about
John
Singleton, your mother.
Divorce. Both of my sisters died.
Your sisters. People don't look at divorce as grief, but you did. You lose things,
So I want to pause real quick. And Charlotte, man, he actually brought up a good point. Grief is different than bereavement. And I want you guys to pick up on this, because grief is the loss of something or maybe someone. It can also be the loss of a relationship. It can be a loss of sometimes your identity, sometimes you trying to figure out who you are by shedding your old self. There's a grieving cycle that happens, and a process of grief that happens when there's a loss of something. Now, bereavement is when somebody passes away or when somebody dies. And I want you guys to really hone in on that term, because grief and bereavement are two different things. So when folks are saying, you guys can think about it this way. We take leave for somebody who's passed away, maybe a loved one, or you're taking some time off. You take bereavement, right? You take bereavement leave. It's usually separate from your PTO, or should be separate from your PTO or sick time. It's bereavement time. So we think about bereavement, and maybe you're taking some time off. It's bereavement time is for somebody who's passed away or somebody who's died. And grief really has to do more with loss. But let's keep watching the video.
You probably lost a lot of friends when you went through your mental health breakdown. Are you have you really taken the time to deal with all of that grief? Or do you just try to stay busy to avoid it?
Silence is loud.
I'm doing the best I can with every 24 hours I get.
And sometimes that is the option. That is the option, to do the best that you can with what you got. Now we'll kind of break down a little bit more, hear a little bit more of what exactly he meant by, I'm doing the best I can with the 24 hours that I got.
That's it.
Some tissue,
no, I don't need no tissue. Black men cry.
Come on, somebody. Black men cry, dog. I'm telling you. This is probably one of my favorite parts of this whole interview, and this is why I like The Breakfast Club. This is like top 5 interviews for me, only because Tyrese, I know social media has been dragging Tyrese, to be honest. Like, we have like the Jordan crying memes, we have the Tyrese memes of like the "what do you want from me?" Like, Tyrese has been going through a lot, and many times we don't really necessarily agree with how he's been dealing with these things, and or if it's publicly or whatever it may be. But understand, like, Black men do cry. Black men, we do cry. And sometimes we don't do it publicly. We don't do it in front of folks. But sometimes we do it in front of folks, people feel uncomfortable. People feel uncomfortable because we have to have a strong demeanor. And usually for Black men, it is a defense mechanism not to cry. It is a defense mechanism not to cry. Why? Because we grow up in environments where crying is shown as a sign of weakness. And I know we kind of see that mantra as, okay, well, crying isn't a sign of weakness, and like it is showing strength and things of that nature. But I want you guys to think from it from this perspective as well too. When you grow up in environments, typically with Black males, especially if you're growing up in lower income or in poverty, and you're growing up around community violence, gang violence, a lot of different things, you have to show your toughness. You have to show that, hey, I'm not afraid, I'm not scared. If you're to cry in front of somebody, that is like blood in the water for sharks. To cry in front of somebody will show that this guy is very weak. Like, this guy, not saying he's weaker, But like, this guy is to be preyed on. You know, this guy is to be taken advantage of. This guy is to be manipulated. Like, we can control this guy because he's crying. You know, so when we talk about not showing signs of weakness, I don't think we really get into the part of like, okay, well, why is it a sign of weakness? You know, and why is it that if we feel like we cry or if we feel like we are vulnerable, that we are exposed? Because other men or other people may prey on that. And again, not other men, but also women can prey on that as well too. Like, oh, this guy is weak, or he ain't nobody, or he, you know, he's not strong enough to take care of me, and I don't want no weak man crying all over me and X, Y, and Z. But this is why, and I appreciate Tyrese for even just saying that, because that's a whole bar in itself. Like, black men, we do cry. We do cry. We do have emotions. We are human beings. We are not animals. We are not these immune things. Like, we may not always show it, but that doesn't mean that we don't experience it. But let's keep rocking with the video.
You know, tissue.
He said, you don't want no tissue?
Every 24 hours I get, I'm doing the best I can. Beautiful Pain, 1992. There is no square footage I could ever live in. There is no rims, no jewelry, and no car. There is no net worth. There is no press release. There is no co-star. There is no collaboration in the world that could ever replace my mama.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it one time, because in the beginning, Charlamagne did mention, hey, are you really dealing with these things, or are you just staying busy? You know, this is where sometimes the controversy with therapy, and me being myself being the therapist, the controversy with therapy sometimes is like, you're doing something and you're being taught how to cope with these emotions that you're dealing with, but your coping can only sometimes go so far. You know, that's something I tell my clients, like, hey, you can only meditate your way out of so much. You know, you can only put yourself in a position of trying to calm yourself so much. You know, that's why even a component of therapy is for you to build community as well too. If you're in therapy, or if you've ever done therapy or experienced therapy, and you're like, hey, therapy's not working, or, you know, I don't really get anything out of therapy, well, it's probably because you need to do therapy and something else. You probably need to do therapy and something else. And the reason why I bring this up is because when Charlamagne did say, hey, are you, you know, dealing with these things, or are you just keeping busy? Keeping busy can be seen as a coping skill, but that thing, or the thing, you know, especially when we talk about grief, or specifically with Tyrese's situation, if we're talking about grief, now we're getting in the position of, okay, well, are you working through it, or are you letting it work through you? Are you working through these emotions that you're dealing with, or are you letting it work through you by trying to stay busy? Because staying busy is only going to go so far. And the thing about staying busy, and when you're trying to use that as a coping skill, is you're going to have to remain busy in order for you to deal with what you need to deal with. What does staying busy all imply? It implies that you continue to be overwhelmed. You continue to feel like you need to always be doing something. You feel obligated, like you can't stay still. You can't stay calm. And busy and peace are not living in the same home. You know, you can't be super busy and be at peace at the same time. So this is super important to realize, especially when we talk about grief, we're talking about loss, we're talking about, you know, going to therapy, is understanding, you know, one, therapy is only going to take you so far, and coping is going to only take you so far. But you have to have things in addition to that. You know, you can't just stay busy, or you can't just meditate your way out of everything. You know, sometimes situations need to change. Sometimes you need to change. And sometimes this is the barrier sometimes I experience with my clients is, you know, yeah, we worked on the things, but are you willing to change? You know, you have to really willing to adapt to the situations that you're in and be able to become a new person with that strength and resilience to get through the thing that you're getting through, right? So let's continue to rock the video.
I could ever feel the void of what it's like to wake up and get married and want to be in something for the rest of your life. And it goes away.
You're making me cry.
Get Tyrese some tissue. Yeah,
I don't need no tissue.
Man, you U.S., man.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I love you.
I want to make a point on Charlamagne. I understand Charlamagne seems to be comforting. I always give praise to Charlamagne. He's like one of the hugest advocates in entertainment, in podcasting and radio, that really gives mental health the attention that it needs, right? But sometimes when we do offer, somebody a tissue, especially in therapy, this is something I was taught. Like if we're offering somebody a tissue, it's sometimes showing that we're uncomfortable seeing that or that person cry. And this is something that I was always taught, like early on in my internships, was, when you are in a state of like somebody crying, you want to make it comfortable for them and not comfortable for yourself. Sometimes offering a tissue is like, hey, I want to try to make you feel better. I want to try to fix you right away. Sometimes, and he already said he don't need no tissue, right? He said he doesn't need a tissue. But Charlamagne, being the advocate he is, I know he doesn't mean any harm, but sometimes you just need to allow the emotions to flow. You need to allow the emotions to flow. You need to allow that person to give that time, space, and actually listen to what they're saying, for sure, right?
You've been holding this
Do
in
you
the whole
understand
interview,
how
though.
much power it is in letting it go?
Yeah, because you've been holding it the whole interview. I've been watching you.
You asked me the question.
I did, but I mean, I'm getting you.
You should have never asked the question.
I love it.
Don't ask if you don't want to know. Don't ask if you don't want to know. The more you mess around, the more you're going to find out, right?
If you didn't want to see.
I love you, brother. I love you.
I like that part. Now, again, I feel like Charlamagne's doing it to make him feel more comfortable about Tyrese crying, but it is good to comfort somebody, like that. But sometimes, it is uncomfortable, right? Like we like to see people laugh. We may like to see people, not cry, but we may like to see people laugh, have fun, but it's hard to see people cry, then we automatically feel like we need to fix it. We automatically feel like we need to fix it because it makes us feel uncomfortable. We also, again, need to really listen to what the person actually needs in the moment.
How hard it's been to get through.
I love you, black man.
Okay, do you not cry?
Absolutely.
You might not bring it to the radio.
Absolutely.
But this is what being grown is.
Thank you, brother.
I'm not doing this.
I need one. My makeup gonna mess up.
Hear me.
My concealer's sitting today.
I told myself I'll do the video. I wasn't gonna laugh at that part, but that part is hilarious. I ain't gonna lie. Him throwing the tissues. I'm not doing this. I don't know. That's my own dark humor. Call it what you want, but I just thought it was hella funny. He like Bobby Schmurdered the the tissues. But again, he's communicating, hey, I don't need this, but you're still giving it to me for whatever reason.
See?
Hear me. Black men cry. When divorces happen, women aren't the only one that are devastated.
Talk about it. Come on, talk about it.
When a miscarriage happens, women are not the only one that you should be checking on.
Talk about it.
When you can't put food on the table because your career goes up and then it goes down, stop skipping over the man.
Please stop doing it.
And just checking on the woman.
Hey, Tyrese, I appreciate you. I already love what you're doing in your career, but most definitely a new level of respect for you, brother. I appreciate you for sharing this. I know it's hard, and it wasn't intentional. Obviously, Charlamagne kind of opened up the conversation. But again, this is one of the realest interviews I've seen. Very, very methodical. I think one thing I do want to say about this too, especially when it comes to crying, and I'll probably do a whole different video on this as well too. Tears can be refreshing. Why are tears refreshing? Because tears can be refreshing because there is a stress hormone in tears. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but there's a stress hormone, the cortisol hormone that is in tears that is actually a stress hormone as well too. So many times, sometimes if you ever thought about it, you're like, why am I crying, or why am I feeling overwhelmed, or why are tears coming out while I'm feeling emotion? But your body is trying to release stress. And when your body's releasing stress, it can do it in the form of a couple of different ways. Sometimes it can come in panic attacks. It can come in, shakings and, overwhelming thoughts and things of that nature. But sometimes on the more emotional part, when you feel overwhelmed with stress, those stress hormones get so built up that it can come out through your tears. There are stress hormones in crying. So sometimes you may feel, okay, why do I feel a little bit better? Why do I feel better after I cry? Well, because you release stress out of your body by crying. Again, Tyrese, appreciate you, man. Wish you nothing but the best. Wish you nothing but success, and may you continue to build, grind, and grow, and may you continue to heal. I appreciate y'all for tapping in. Again, Terrence, Stewart, y'all take care. Peace.